Today, we are going to learn part 1 of the chapter Paths to Modernization. If you are yet to subscribe my channel, please subscribe my channel. Press bell icon for getting latest notification. Let us move into the topic. East Asia at the beginning of the 19th century was dominated by China. So in the beginning of the 19th century, the East Asia, if you take the countries of East Asia, and among those countries, it was dominated, or China had an important place. So these are the various East Asian countries. So you can see here China. This is China. Then this is Japan. Then Thailand, Burma, Laos, Vietnam. All these countries are there. And in China, the Qing dynasty was in power for a long time. Which dynasty was in power? The Qing dynasty. And Japan, very small country, island nation, seemed to be locked in isolation. So why? It is told that it is locked in isolation because you can see over here, Japan is an island nation. It is away from the mainland of Asia. That is why it is written here. It was locked in isolation. Now the Qing dynasty, officially the Great Qing, was the last imperial dynasty of China. Like our Mughal dynasty, you can say. It is the last imperial dynasty of China. And it was established in the year 1636 and ruled China from 1644 to 1912. Long years. And by the time in China was facing a lot of problem inside and unable to face colonial challenge. So it was attacked by Japan and all. And again, it faced the threats from Britain too. A lot of problems inside the country and also from the outside the country. The imperial government lost, the government which was ruling in China, lost political control and was difficult to reform effectively, change the country effectively in an efficient way. The country was convulsed. A new word is coming here. Convulsed, the meaning of convulsed, throw a country into violent social or political upheaval by civil war. Country was convulsed by civil war. What do you mean by civil war? If the communities are fighting in between within a country, that is what we call civil war. So it lost political control, it became weak, it was unable to reform effectively, to change itself effectively, and the country was indulged in civil war. Japan, on the other hand, became successful in making a modern nation state, creating an industrial economy and even establishing a colonial empire by incorporating Taiwan and Korea. So it attacked Taiwan, it attacked Korea, and it built a colonial empire, You can see here from the map itself, Japan is a very small country, but still it was managed to make an imperial empire. So you can imagine how modern, how efficient it was. Became an industrial economy. Now it defeated China. China, very big country. The land that had been the source of culture and its ideals in 1894, and Russia, a European power, in 1905. So it defeated China and Russia, both very, very big nations. Okay, so Japanese people were highly efficient, they were highly organized, systematically organized. The Chinese reacted slowly and faced immense difficulties as they sought to redefine their traditions, to cope with the modern world, and to rebuild their national strength and become free from Western and Japanese control. So what happened to China? Why China was not able to reorganize themselves properly, reform themselves properly? Because as I told you before, they had problems within the country and they were also facing problems from outside. And because of that, it became difficult for them to redefine their tradition. They had a lot of culture, they had traditional things, they had like a conservative mindset. So they had to change themselves. But those changes occurred very, very, very slowly. And their political power, their government was also not very weak. So it took time to rebuild their national strength and to free from the Western and the Japanese control. We studied the Japanese, how they defeated China. Now they found that they could achieve both the objectives of removing inequalities and rebuilding their countries to revolution, which we will learn in the coming section. So how they can rebuild national strength, how they can redefine their tradition by removing inequalities in the country and to rebuild their nation through a revolution. That is what they wanted to do. Removing inequalities in their country like rich and poor or caste-based divisions around, to remove all these inequalities in the country and to remake the country through revolution. Okay. Like in India, we had caste-based division. Similarly, even though they did not have a caste-based division, they had differences in communities. The Chinese Communist Party, which led the revolution, emerged victorious from civil war in 1949. So which party came to power? Communist Party of China. And how they came to power? From the civil war. In the year 1949, civil war occurred and the Chinese Communist Party emerged, became victorious from the civil war in 1949. By the end of 1970s, Chinese leaders felt that ideological system was retarding economic growth and development. But even though the Chinese Communist Party started ruling, even though they came to power through revolution by 1970s again, Chinese leaders felt that the Chinese economic growth is not up to the mark and communism is not moving according to the dynamic society, to the changing society. The ideology should be changed and this ideology is actually pulling the country backward. If the country has to move forward, they had to accept the Western ideology, Western political system, Western economic policies. A private oriented, a market economy should be brought in place. That they understood. And this led to wide-ranging reforms, a lot of reforms of the economy that brought back capitalism and free market even as the Communist Party retained political control. So till now, the Communist Party is ruling China, but they, unlike communism, they favored capitalism. Capitalism means they are giving importance to private individuals to carry out production, and they're also giving importance to free market where the government will not interfere. They are freeing themselves from the economic policies and giving importance to the market forces like demand and supply to bring equilibrium in the country. Japan. Now take the case of Japan, became an advanced industrial nation, but its drive for empire led to war, defeat at the hands of Anglo-American forces. Japan, on the other hand, they never went for communism. They had a capitalist form of economic system, became an industrial nation, became rich in a short span of time, but they wanted to become an imperial power. They wanted to control other countries, and this led to the defeat at the hands of English and American forces in the Second World War. The US occupation, the control of USA, marked the beginning of more democratic political system. The USA always favored the bringing up of democracy, and again in Japan too, they strengthened the democratic political system and it rebuilt, it started remaking its economy to emerge by 1970s as a major economic power. As we know, in the year 1945, they received a major setback when atom bombs were dropped in the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And afterwards, by 1970s, it became a major economic power. Even though it is a very small country, even though everything got damaged in Second World War. And India, which got independence nearly at that time, still it's developing. The Japanese path to modernization was built on capitalist principle. They gave importance to capitalism. Privatization liberalized the principles and free play of market forces, demand and supply. Production occurred on the basis of demand and supply. Okay, so if demand comes from the market, then they will supply. Otherwise, they will not supply. They will cut short production. Okay, so it will lead to increase in prices, profit, sales, and prosperity in the economy. So they are guided by capitalist principles. Japanese expansion was justified by the call to resist Western domination and liberate Asia. So why they wanted to have an imperial empire? Because they felt that we should control the Western domination. The Western countries are dominating Asia. So we should dominate and we should liberate Asia from the Western influence. The rapid development underlined the strength of tradition in Japanese institutions and society, their ability to learn and strength of nationalism. Anyway, we cannot underestimate or we cannot say that a Japanese desire for imperialism is utterly wrong or something. We cannot blame them because we can see that Japanese firmly believed in traditional institutions, they believed in society, and they had the ability to learn and they loved their country very much. Were having the spirit of nationalism. That is the rapid development. What is the meaning of this sentence? They were developing very fast, even though they tried to make an imperial empire. Afterwards, after 1970s, we can see a rapid development or rapid growth of Japan. Why rapid growth took place in the case of Japan? Because they had firm strength in Japanese institutions. Okay, like if you take any kind of society in Japan, they valued their customs, they valued their traditions, rituals, etc. They gave importance to cities, they gave importance to the relationship between individuals, they loved each other, they respected each other, and they wanted to learn more and more, wanted to learn new things, they wanted to bring new technology. And also they loved their country very, very, very much. They loved their country more than anything. They had dedication, they had hard work. So all these strength underlined the development took place in Japan. Now, what are the sources of information we are getting about the history of China and Japan? We are getting information about China and Japan from official history, scholarly writings by scholars, popular literature, like novel stories and all, then religious books, religious works, etc. And printing and publishing were important industries in the pre-modern period, and no shortage of printed materials were there. Now, first great historian who has written about China was Sima Qian. He lived in the time period of 145 to 90 BCE, before Christian era. Now, this is his picture. Sima Qian was a Chinese historian of the early Han dynasty. There was a dynasty called Han dynasty, and he was a historian of Han dynasty. And he is considered as the father of Chinese historiography for his records of Grand Historian, a general history of China. In Japan, Chinese cultural influence led to history being given a similar importance. Even Japan too, they gave importance to write history, and similarly, like China, Chinese cultural influence was there in Japan, and because all these countries were a part of a single continent, afterwards only they were broken and drifted apart. So of course the influence would be there, and the way the Chinese were writing history, it was influenced, or Japan got inspiration from the Chinese to maintain a history, to start writing a history because of having influence with them. Japan in 1969, they had a bureau, they had an organization to collect the records and write as it were a victor's version of Meiji Restoration. Okay, when Meiji government came to power, okay, a new government, that is, they restored to power, they came back to power, that we will learn in the coming section. So a Meiji government came to power again. Okay, so they changed everything in Japan. Okay, so they were very efficient, they were ruling in a magnificent way, and they appointed a bureau, an organization are set up to collect the records of the historical fact, and how you have to write the history from the victor's version, how the Meijis came to power, how the Meijis restored to power. Okay, so how they on their viewpoint you have to write the history. So for that they appointed a bureau. There was a great respect for written word, and literary ability was highly valued. They gave importance for the historians. Now, Chinese intellectuals such as Liang Qichao, one of the pioneers of modern history in Japan, as well as early writings by European travelers like Italian Marco Polo, Jesuit priest Matteo Ricci, the Louis Frois, all these people in Japan, and all of them have given beautiful accounts of China and Japan. So these people, they are working in China and Japan. They have written about the Chinese history, Japanese history. So we are getting information from these people. It has also benefited from, we are also getting information from the Christian missionaries who were working in both the countries for spreading the religion and all, and they are also providing us with the valuable information about these countries. Now again, Joseph Needham's monumental work on the history of science in Chinese civilization, and George Sansom's work on Japanese history and culture, also providing us with valuable information. So who wrote about the history of science in Chinese civilization? Joseph Needham. And who wrote about Japanese history and culture? George Sanson. So many names are coming. You can include these names while writing the question answer. Okay, at least you remember 2-3 names. In recent years, writings by Chinese and Japanese scholars have been translated into English. Okay, so majority of the writings were in their local language, their languages, Chinese language, Japanese languages, their national languages, and it was converted into the English so that others can understand about the history of China and Japan. And it was taught abroad. In the case of Chinese scholars, since 1980s, many have been working in Japan as well as writing Japanese. So the people, the famous personalities, were working in both the countries. We are working in Japan, we are working in Chinese, and all these works, majority of the works, were translated into English so that others will get to know about the history of Chinese people and the Japanese people. Okay, even Chinese scholars were working in Japan. Okay, they went to Japan, they were working in Japan, and they wrote about Chinese history and also Japanese history. So this has meant that we have scholarly writings. The teachers, scholars means the well-educated people, the teachers. The writings from many parts of the globe that give us a richer and deeper picture of these countries. So by reading their works, by reading their literature parts, we are getting a very good picture of both these countries. Now, Native Conan, a leading Japanese scholar of China, had influenced the scholars worldwide. Using new tools of Western historiography, Nato built on a long tradition of studying China as well as bringing his experience as a journalist there. So Nato Conan was doing journalism in China. He was learning the tradition of China, and he used the tool of Western historiography, how the Westernized has written history. So he learned about the Western history, and he used a similar line of narrating the events or similar way of writing history like the Western historians. He started writing everything. He helped to establish the Department of Oriental Studies in Kyoto University in 1907. So he established a department for studying the history of the Chinese history and all. That is Department of Oriental Studies. Then in Shinaro, he argued that the Republican government offered the Chinese a way to end aristocratic control and centralized power that had existed since the Sung dynasty. The republican form of government means the people are electing the head of the country. So that it gave an opportunity for the Chinese people to end the aristocratic control, to end the control by the the landlords and all, or the rich people, and a centralized power. Power was concentrated in the hands of the aristocrats. Power was concentrated in the hands of landlords or a single person. So from there, power was decentralized. Power was given in the hands of people. So the Republican government has given a chance. Okay, the communist revolution has given a chance. He saw in Chinese history the strength that would make it modern and democratic. So according to him, the Chinese history or China was having a strength. It was very strong, which made China a modern country and a democratic country. That is his viewpoint. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon for the notification. Thank you.